The camera lights were blinding, but I didn't flinch. My voice trembled only slightly as I leaned into the microphone. Across the nation, people were tuning in. I could feel my daughter watching too, probably from her friend's living room, mortified. But I had no choice. I wasn't doing this for fame, revenge, or sympathy. I was doing this because I was a mother and I had something to say. Just 3 weeks earlier, everything had seemed so normal. The morning sun had warmed our little front porch in Wichita, Kansas. I was trimming roses, humming the same Patsy Cline tune I used to sing to my daughter, Holly, when she was little. But now Holly was 27, living in Topeka and barely calling home. When she did, it was brief, rushed, distant. Then one afternoon, she said it cold and sharp, like a slap across the face. "Mom, you're embarrassing me." At first, I laughed, thinking she was joking. Me embarrassing? I was the one who worked 2 jobs to put her through school, the one who stitched her prom dress when we couldn't afford the one she wanted, the one who cheered at every soccer game, even when she sat on the bench. But Holly wasn't joking. It wasn't just the way I dressed or the way I spoke. It was me, my hugs, my stories, my casseroles. I was too much for her polished professional life now. I was the past she didn't want to bring into the present. I cried for 2 days, quietly alone. Then I found something unexpected. While organizing boxes in the attic, I stumbled upon an old VHS tape, dusty and unlabeled. Curious, I popped it into the player, and what I saw stopped me cold. There was Holly, 7 years old, speaking to the camera, eyes wide and sincere. "Mom, if I ever forget how much I love you, show me this, okay?" I watched it twice. Then I packed a suitcase, called a number from an old contact list, and scheduled an appearance on a local talk show because what started as a gesture of love turned into something far more disturbing. My name is Eleanor Grace Bennett, but everyone in Wichita just calls me Ellie. I'm 66 years old, a retired school librarian, and the proud mother of one, my daughter, Holly Jean Bennett. People say I'm sweet, classic, even old-fashioned, which I never mind. I bake my own bread, sew my own curtains, and still believe in handwritten thank you notes. I've always believed that kindness isn't weakness, that showing up for someone matters more than what you are, where you are, or what car you drive. I raised Holly with those values, the same ones my own mother passed down to me. We weren't rich, but our home was full of warmth, music, and honest talk. And until recently, I thought that was enough. After retiring last spring, I found myself with long days and quiet evenings, too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your bones ache. I thought maybe I'd travel a little or take up painting, like I'd always dreamed. But truth be told, I missed having someone to fuss over. That's when I started calling Holly more often. She had moved to Topeka a few years back after landing a corporate job in marketing. I was proud, deeply proud, of how far she'd come from the little girl with pigtails and grass-stained jeans to a woman who wore heels and knew how to order fancy drinks I couldn't pronounce. But the calls became strained. At first, it was subtle. She'd talk while multitasking. Her voice clipped like she was racing a clock. Then she stopped answering altogether. I blamed it on work stress, told myself she just needed space. In late October, Holly invited me to visit her for the weekend. She said she had something important to talk about. I baked banana bread, packed my nicest floral blouse, and caught the bus. Her apartment was modern, sleek furniture, white walls, abstract art. Not a single photo of us anywhere. Not even the one of her graduation day, where I'm clutching her diploma like a golden ticket. I tried not to read into it. We sat on opposite sides of her white leather couch. She looked nervous. I offered her banana bread. That's when she said it. "Mom, you're kind of embarrassing." I blinked, laughed. "Oh, come on, honey." But she didn't laugh with me. She began listing things, how I spoke too loudly in restaurants, how I told stories with too much detail, how I brought up her childhood too often, how my clothes were a little dated and kind of country. She even mentioned my old flip phone, which she called a relic. Her words weren't mean. Not exactly. They were calculated, like a work memo dressed up as a conversation. I just need some space right now, she said. Maybe we can talk less often for a bit. It's not personal. I'm just building a new chapter. Building a new chapter without me in it. That night, I cried in her guest room. Not loud, not messy, just silent tears soaking into her 1,000 thread count pillowcase. The next morning, I left before sunrise. I left the banana bread on the kitchen counter with a note, for when you miss home. Back in Wichita, I tried to carry on. I went to the market, made small talk with the butcher, visited the library just to smell the books, but everything felt hollow. One afternoon, I climbed into the attic to retrieve my sewing machine. I thought maybe I'd start quilting again just to keep my hands busy. That's when I found the box. It was labeled Holly age 5 to 9. Inside were drawings, school awards, and a VHS tape with a faded sticker that read Rainy Day Project. I took it downstairs, popped it into my dusty old player, and waded through the static. There she was, little Holly, missing teeth, braids bouncing, sitting in front of our old floral wallpaper. She smiled big and said, "Hi, future me. If you're watching this, don't forget how awesome Mom is. She reads me bedtime stories even when she's tired. And she makes the best grilled cheese. Mom, if I ever act like I don't love you, show me this." Okay, I watched it 3 times before I realized I was crying again, but not from sadness this time. From something else, something deeper. A mix of heartbreak and resolve. That's when I remembered Judy Peterson. Judy and I worked together at the library for nearly 20 years. After retirement, she STA. I started a community spotlight segment on a local morning show, feel-good stories, small-town heroes, that sort of thing. I hadn't spoken to her in months, but I dialed her number. "Judy, it's Ellie. I think I have a story for your show," I said. When she asked what it was about, I told her it's about being a mother in a world that forgets mothers and maybe reminding the world and my daughter that love doesn't have an expiration date. She booked me right away. The night before my segment, I didn't sleep. I picked out my clothes carefully, soft blue cardigan, pearl earrings, a little lipstick. I even curled my hair, though the iron burned my thumb in the process. Holly hadn't returned my messages. I didn't know if she'd even see it, but I hoped she would. The set was small, just 2 chairs and a backdrop of the Kansas skyline. The lights were hot, the air stiff. Judy greeted me with a hug and whispered, "Speak from your heart." And so I did. After the TV segment aired, the phone started ringing. Judy told me it was one of the most heartfelt interviews the station had aired all year. Viewers sent handwritten letters. A local florist delivered bouquets to my doorstep for days. One woman dropped off a cherry pie and just hugged me on the porch without saying a word. But Holly? Not a peep. No call, no text, no angry voicemail, nothing. At first, I thought she might have missed it. Maybe she was traveling. Maybe her inbox was flooded. But deep down, I knew my daughter, and silence was her weapon of choice when she didn't know how to confront something or someone. 2 weeks passed. Then one morning, while sipping tea in the kitchen, I got a text from Holly. I saw the video. "Can we talk?" My heart leapt. I texted back immediately, offering to meet wherever she was comfortable. She didn't respond until that evening, asking if I could come to her apartment. The next day, she didn't say much else. I baked banana bread again. Maybe foolishly, maybe out of habit, maybe hope. When she opened the door, I noticed it right away. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Hi, Mom," she said, stepping aside. Her apartment was spotless as ever. Too spotless. No scent of food. No shoes near the door. Like no one really lived there. "I brought something," I said, holding up the bread. "Oh, you didn't have to." Her voice was polite, almost robotic. She placed it on the counter without looking at it again. We sat in the living room, the same pristine space where she'd once told me I was an embarrassment. Now she sat upright, legs crossed, arms folded like she was in a meeting. "So, the TV thing," she began, eyes flicking to the side. "I didn't use your name," I said gently. "It wasn't to shame you. I needed to speak for myself." Her jaw clenched, then softened. "It went kind of viral, you know? People at work saw it." I nodded, unsure whether that was good or bad. I don't know how to explain this, Mom," she sighed, looking down. "You're not wrong, but things are just really complicated right now." Complicated. That word again. It was then I noticed it. A locked door. I hadn't remembered seeing it during my last visit. It was new, white, shiny, with a keypad lock like something you'd see in an office, not an apartment. "What's that?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, storage," she said quickly. Too quickly. "My landlord upgraded the security for units with utility panels." Nothing exciting. I nodded, but something in my chest pulled tight. The rest of our conversation was short, polite, hollow, like two people pretending to be mother and daughter. As I stood to leave, she gave me a quick, stiff hug. "I'll call you next week," she said. I waited. When she still didn't call, I sent a message. No reply. I tried again, nothing. That's when I started noticing things. One night, I got an Instagram message from a girl named Tessa who said she used to intern at Holly's office. "Hi, Miss Bennett, I know this is random, but I saw your video online. It meant a lot to me. I hope you're okay. You seem really brave." I thanked her and asked how she knew Holly. There was a long pause, then, "We're not really in touch anymore." "Sorry, just wanted to say thanks." It was strange. Why message me from a burner account? Why the hesitance? But I let it go. Then one afternoon, I stopped by Holly's office unannounced. I'll admit I brought her a copy of a children's book she loved as a kid. The receptionist looked confused when I asked for Holly. "Oh," she said, "she's not here. She took a leave of absence a few weeks ago." I blinked. "Are you sure she didn't mention anything?" The woman checked her calendar. "Yeah, right after your TV thing aired. Must have been a tough time." She said it like I'd caused something, like Holly had to escape from the fallout. Now I was confused. If she wasn't working, why didn't she have time to call? Where was she going all day? That night, I couldn't sleep. I began retracing old texts, old emails, small things, vague answers, excuses, a meeting here, a friend's trip there, and always that word, complicated. I started having dreams. I'd open the locked door in her hallway and find myself in her childhood bedroom, untouched. Or I'd find a younger Holly inside, crying, asking why I left her. I'd wake up with my heart pounding, drenched in sweat. Part of me wanted to confront her, but another part whispered, "What if you're just imagining all this? What if you're being dramatic?" That voice was familiar. It was the same voice I'd used to downplay her first. "You're embarrassing me." The same voice that told me I was overreacting when she stopped calling. But now I couldn't ignore the way her smiles felt hollow, the way her hugs had gone from warm to obligation, the way she brushed off my questions, avoided eye contact, and deflected anything real. Something had shifted. Something was off. I began to wonder, was she hiding something or someone? Was it shame, guilt, fear, or was it me? Had I become a symbol of something she wanted to leave behind? A past too painful, too uncool, too inconvenient for the life she was trying to curate? The thought stung more than I cared to admit. Still, I didn't stop hoping. Hope, after all, is a stubborn thing. After weeks of silence and coldness, I knew I couldn't stay passive anymore. The locked door in Holly's apartment haunted me like a secret whisper. I told myself it was none of my business, that I should respect her privacy. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that door, the white smooth keypad, blinking faintly in the dark hallway. I had to know. One afternoon, I found myself back at her apartment. Holly wasn't home. Her car was gone. The hallway was quiet except for the hum of the air conditioner. I glanced around, no neighbors, no cameras, just me and that door. Heart pounding, I took a breath. And then I remembered something. The landlord had mentioned the keypad was upgraded after a series of package thefts. If I could find the landlord's phone number, maybe I could get the code. I called the number scrolled on a flyer in the lobby. "Hi, this is Eleanor Bennett. I'm helping my daughter with some things, and I was wondering if you could help me with the keypad code for her unit storage." The landlord's voice was gruff. "Sorry, ma'am. I can't just give that out. It's for tenant security." I hesitated, then said, "She's going through some difficult times and asked me to check on a few things while she's away." There was a pause. "Well, okay. The code is 4372, but please don't share it." I thanked him and hung up. Back in the hallway, I keyed in the numbers. The lock beeped twice and clicked open. Inside, the room was small and cold. No windows, concrete floor, plain walls, but it was full of boxes, crates, and a metal filing cabinet. I started pulling things out, feeling like an intruder in a puzzle I wasn't sure I wanted to solve. In one box, I found envelopes addressed to Holly from someone named M. The handwriting was unfamiliar, tight, and neat. But the letters inside were strange, cryptic phrases like "it's time to choose" and "remember the truth." Another box had scattered papers, photos of Holly, but not the smiling ones. These showed her looking scared, sometimes with people I didn't recognize lurking in the background. I opened the filing cabinet, its drawers heavy with weight. The top drawer held folders of documents, bank statements altered with strange notations, emails printed and annotated, even a copy of Holly's birth certificate with a small note pinned, "Protect at all costs." It felt like I was walking into a conspiracy. Then I found the worst, a small camera hidden inside what looked like a smoke detector. A video recorder was still blinking with a low battery. I grabbed it and brought it back to my car, hands shaking. At home, I hooked up the recorder and pressed play. The screen flickered, showing Holly's apartment. Moments later, the camera shifted to the hallway outside her door, then to a kitchen table where Holly sat staring blankly. I saw a man enter, someone I hadn't met before. He spoke softly, but his tone was firm, almost threatening. Holly flinched at his words, folding her arms tightly. They argued, voices low. I couldn't hear all the words, but one phrase stuck out. "You promised. You can't back out now." I rewound and watched again. I felt a cold lump in my stomach. Who was this man, and what had Holly promised? Why was she hiding this from me? Tears welled up, but I kept watching. The video ended abruptly. I sat in silence, mind racing. How long had this been going on? Why hadn't Holly told me, and what could I do now? Fear mixed with a fierce urge to protect her. Despite everything, she was still my daughter. I knew then I couldn't back down. The next day, I packed a small bag. I was going to find answers. The silence in my house felt heavier than ever after watching that video. I sat for hours, clutching the remote, staring at the blank screen, my mind replaying every scene. The quiet was deafening, but inside, a storm raged. Fear, confusion, anger, and above all, heartbreak. How had Holly ended up here? How had I missed the signs? I wanted to scream, to call her, to demand answers. But I knew yelling wouldn't fix this. It wouldn't bring us closer. It would only push her further away. Instead, I let the tears fall, alone in the living room, memories of happier times washing over me. That night, sleep eluded me. I tossed and turned, thoughts spinning like a carousel. The next morning, I was determined. I needed to understand everything: the cryptic letters, the altered documents, the camera footage. I spread the papers on the dining table. Looking over the folders again, some of the bank statements didn't add up. Large sums withdrawn in cash, unexplained transfers. There were references to companies I'd never heard of, some offshore accounts. I wasn't an expert, but I could see the outlines of a complicated web. I started organizing the documents by date, making notes, highlighting words and names. The letters from M kept haunting me. Who was this person? A friend, an enemy, someone holding power over Holly? I realized I needed help. I reached out to my old friend Susan, a retired attorney who'd helped me through some tough times years ago. When I explained the situation, she listened patiently, then said, "Eleanor, this sounds serious. If someone's manipulating Holly or threatening her, you have to be careful. But you're right to start gathering evidence." Susan offered to review the documents and see if anything could be legally challenged. I felt a small flicker of hope, but I knew I couldn't stop there. I decided to take a closer look at the camera device. There might be more footage, logs, hidden files, clues. I connected it to my computer and found a hidden folder labeled Surveillance. Inside were dozens of video files timestamped over the past few months. Watching them was like stepping into Holly's world, but from a distance. Some videos showed her alone, pacing nervously in her apartment. Others captured meetings with the man from before, always tense, always shadowed with fear. One video shocked me the most. It showed Holly receiving a small package, carefully wrapped. She hid it under the floorboard before. The camera switched off. What was inside that package and why hide it? My mind raced. I began keeping a journal, writing down everything I discovered, my feelings, my questions. This became my lifeline, a way to process the whirlwind inside. At the same time, I called my therapist, Dr. Morgan, who'd helped me cope after my husband's passing. We talked about how betrayal could twist even the strongest bonds and how sometimes love meant stepping back to protect those we care about, even when it hurt. "I'm scared for Holly," I confessed during our session. "But I don't want to lose her. I don't know how to help." Dr. Morgan encouraged me to be patient, but vigilant. "You're doing the right thing by gathering facts, but also remember to care for yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup." Her words grounded me. I reached out to a local support group for families dealing with estrangement and secrets. Hearing others' stories reminded me I wasn't alone, that many had walked this painful path and come out stronger. Slowly, I began forming a plan. First, I would share what I'd found with Susan to understand my legal options. Next, I wanted to confront Holly, but carefully, gently. I didn't want to accuse or frighten her. I wanted to listen and maybe, just maybe, help her find a way out. I knew this wouldn't be easy. There would be tears, anger, and probably more silence. But I couldn't give up because beneath the hurt and betrayal was something stronger: love. I knew the moment I'd been dreading was coming. After days of careful planning and heart-wrenching self-talk, I called Holly and asked her to meet me at a quiet cafe near her apartment. I didn't want a crowd. I wanted a place where she could feel safe, or at least less trapped. When she arrived, she looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her usual spark dimmed. She sat down without a word, eyes avoiding mine. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone, the camera footage loaded and ready. "Holly," I began softly, "I need to show you something." "Something I found." My voice trembled, but held steady. She looked up, startled, a flicker of fear passing over her face. I pressed play. The screen showed her apartment, the man entering, the quiet argument. She stiffened. "I didn't want to believe it," I said, swallowing the lump in my throat. But I had to see for myself. Tears welled in her eyes, but she stayed silent. I showed her the other files, the altered bank statements, the strange letters from M, the video of the package hidden beneath the floorboard. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice breaking. She finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "I was scared, Mom. I didn't want you involved. I thought I could handle it alone." Her confession hit me like a punch. "How long has this been going on?" I asked gently. "Months," she admitted. "Ever since I tried to break away." I nodded slowly, realizing now how tangled everything was. "I'm not angry you kept this from me," I said. "I'm scared for you, and I want to help." She looked at me, then vulnerability shining through the exhaustion. "Help me," she whispered. We talked for hours, peeling back layers of fear, guilt, and confusion. She told me about the pressure, the promises she'd made to someone who held a dark grip on her life. The power had shifted, but now it was my turn. I promised her we would find a way out together. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time, hope flickered in the darkness. The day I decided to leave was one of the hardest and bravest days of my life. Packing my bags, I felt a strange mix of relief and fear. Relief because finally, I was stepping away from the shadows that had been suffocating me. And fear because the unknown stretched out ahead like an empty road. I told Holly I was coming to stay with her, not to control her, but to protect her, to be a team. Together, we found a small apartment, quiet, simple, but safe. It wasn't much, but it was ours. With Susan's help, I filed the legal papers to freeze accounts and demand an investigation into the suspicious transactions. It was slow, frustrating, and exhausting, but each step forward felt like reclaiming a piece of my dignity. I remember the night after the first court hearing, sitting on the worn couch with Holly, tears streaming down both our faces. But they weren't just tears of sadness. They were tears of release, of hope, of healing. Slowly, laughter returned, soft, tentative at first, then genuine and loud. We began setting boundaries with the people who had hurt us, learning to say no without guilt. I took long walks in the park, breathing in the fresh air, feeling the sun warm my face for the first time in months. I learned to forgive myself for the past, the mistakes, the missed signs, and to cherish the present. Most importantly, I rediscovered my strength. That strength wasn't loud or angry. It was quiet, steady, like a river carving its way through stone. And with each passing day, I grew stronger. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away. The morning light in my new apartment felt like a gentle promise, soft, warm, and full of possibility. Unlike the cold, shadowed rooms of my old life, this space breathed with color and comfort. Creamy sunlight spilled across the wooden floorboards, casting a golden glow on the potted plants Holly and I had picked out together. I had never realized how much a cozy corner could heal until I sat by the window each morning with a steaming cup of chamomile tea, watching the birds flutter in the trees outside. Their carefree songs seemed to whisper, "You are safe now. You are free." Every detail of this new life felt deliberate and meaningful. The soft throw blanket draped over the armchair, the gentle scent of lavender in the air, the worn pages of the book I was finally reading for pleasure, they all grounded me. I was learning to savor the little things, moments I had long forgotten amidst fear and uncertainty. Mornings were no longer filled with dread, but with quiet rituals that restored my soul. I practiced gentle yoga stretches, feeling my body awaken slowly. I journaled, pouring out thoughts that had once been trapped behind walls of silence. I cooked simple meals, the aroma of fresh herbs and garlic filling the kitchen with warmth. Most importantly, I was reclaiming my identity. No longer just mom or daughter in distress, but Eleanor, a woman with dreams, strength, and a heart open to love and life. Holly and I grew closer in ways I never thought possible. Our conversations deepened, filled with honesty and laughter. We celebrated small victories, a paid bill, a legal win, a day without fear. Sometimes, when the weight of the past crept in, we would sit together in silence, holding hands, finding peace and shared strength. The community I found through support groups and new friendships was another blessing, people who understood, who lifted me up without judgment. Their kindness reminded me that no one has to face darkness alone. I began volunteering at a local shelter, helping others reclaim their lives. Giving back gave me purpose, and each smile I received in return was a balm to my own healing heart. Slowly, the embers of joy reignited. I laughed again, not the forced laugh of pretense, but deep belly laughter that echoed through the rooms. I danced to music in my living room, twirling like no one was watching. Sometimes, I caught my reflection and smiled, a woman transformed, resilient and radiant. This rebirth was not just a change of place, but a renewal of spirit, a chance to live authentically without fear or shame. And every morning, as the sunlight touched my face, I was reminded this was just the beginning. Looking back on this journey, I realized how fragile trust can be and how strong the human spirit is when tested. Sometimes, the ones who claim to love us the most are the ones who try to control us, even without realizing it. But freedom, once taken back, is the most beautiful kind of peace. It's the peace that comes from reclaiming your story, your space, and your voice. From choosing to live honestly even when it's hard. From understanding that love doesn't mean losing yourself. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this. No matter how dark the path feels, there is always a way out. There is always hope. There is always a chance to start again. And sometimes that chance begins with simply saying, enough. Thank you for listening to my story. If you discovered someone was watching your every move, spying on you, controlling you, what would you do? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you because none of us should ever feel alone.